anyone hear me? I never know how to do this right. Not ever. I'm never gonna get this right. Is anyone there today? Hello? Please let me know if you hear me. Oh, looks like there's people. Yeah. Hello, Todd Zurcher. Hello, yes, Taylor. You guys can hear me okay? Okay, perfect. As usual, get used to the possibility that this could all go horribly wrong, disconnect, etc., because shitty third world internet connection. So, all right, well, there's 20 people here. Wow, that's pretty impressive for a live stream where I didn't even specify a subject other than it being the 3,000 subscriber live stream. As you can see, we've now beaten the 3,000 level in subscribers. Really crazy. It's doing very well. And you know what? Besides that, it also is a channel where I get a much higher ratio of views to subscribers than a lot of other channels. I noticed this recently when I noticed another channel that had actually more subscribers than me, but we're getting way less views per video, you know, and so that's a very good sign, because you guys aren't just subscribing, you're subscribing and watching and hopefully sharing the videos. And I want to thank all of you for having done so. This show is kind of about you guys. Today, I'm going to be answering your questions about a variety of subjects. So write in any questions or topics of discussion you'd like to bring up in the chat. I'll be trying to monitor it. And let's have some fun, I guess. So I guess I should begin with introductions, though I'm guessing that most of you here already know. I'm the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shows. And this is a live stream to celebrate you. Excuse me, lighting my pipe. To celebrate you guys for having supported this channel in spite of my really shitty production values and irregular video posting and everything else. All right. So let's take a look here at some of the live chat. First of all, I wanted to note it. I hope you guys enjoyed the thumbnail for this video. I think I call that photo Big Chungus triumphant over pizza box. Damn it. I just was sitting on that pizza box. I was going to throw it out, but she doesn't let me. She's just loving sitting there, which means she probably won't show up actually tonight because I'm filming in a different room. Okay, so to start with, somebody says, anyone have an opinion on rifts? Well, you know, I actually played a lot of rifts. I played a lot of rifts in all kinds of Palladium games, all through my teen years into my early 20s. I think it's a fantastic game. It's great products. I understand some people's complaints about either the company or Kevin or whatever. The system is supposed to be not coherent, but that's what they say about D&D. You know, that's not the point of that system. Nobody plays Palladium for the coherency, you know? Like that's nonsensical. And Rifts, I think, is a great setting. It's got all kinds of potential. It can be played in so many different ways, from like this kind of cyberpunk gritty urban thing to like, you know, high science fantasy space opera. You know, it's got every range: post-apocalyptic, military, criminal, wilderness adventuring. And I think maybe the error some people do is that they think you have to have every class and everything available to the players when you start the campaign. And what you really probably ought to do in a Rifts campaign is pick the classes and you know, optional racial character classes and all of those based on what you want there to be in the part of the campaign and the type of the campaign you're making, right? So that you don't end up with a class that just won't fit the vision of what you want to do. There might be some campaigns where anything can go, but I think a lot of campaigns in Rifts would really benefit by just that one change of being a bit more restrictive as a DM about what kind of classes you apply. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on Rifts. I never thought that would be the first question of the night, but there we have it. Not even OSR, but I did really love, I still love Palladium's books. I think they're great. I think that they appeal on some very visceral level. The secret of their ongoing success when so many other companies that rose up with Palladium have vanished is that Palladium has stuck to its guns about being a game that is first and foremost for fun and that is meant to appeal to that adolescent mentality. That is, remember, that sounds like a bad thing, but adolescence is when most of us started gaming, right? There's a fundamental element of adolescent playfulness to games. And Rifts and Palladium just decided to go with that all the way, right? So lots of explosion, really cool arts, giant robots, and occasional boobies. That's the secret of Rifts, right? That's the secret of all of Palladium's games. Okay, so you do that, and it works. That's all. You don't need to change that formula. Spooky Thing says, do you have any tips for getting into Call of Cthulhu? What's the best edition? Is Beyond the Paranormal a decent substitute? Well, first, as far as I'm concerned for Cthulhu, I think anything before 6 so good things about the latest edition. I haven't really looked at it myself though, so it wouldn't be fair for me to make any definitive claim. Beyond the Paranormal is did you mean to say Beyond the Supernatural, the Palladium game? Because if you it's a very, very good game, but it's also very different from Call of Cthulhu. It's not the same thing, but I mean, if what you're looking for is an investigative horror game, yeah, a substitution for Call of Cthulhu, except it's not part of the Cthulhu mythos. It's got its own mythos, which has some really, really cool elements to it. As there. Well, there we go, guys. Hello, I'm back. So, yeah, I don't know what the hell just happened there. Just give me 1 second here. I gotta reset the. There we go. I think that's got it. So, oh, god damn it. Trying to get back to the chat here, and this isn't letting me really. Okay. All right, so here we are. Yeah, I guess you guys got a very slight glimpse of a face reveal there. Not that my face is a big secret, actually. It's just not really worth filming. All right. So where were we here? We were talking about Palladium. I think we pretty much that topic. I am not a boomer, by the way. I'm Gen X. So our next question, then, are now very far behind live chat here, is Cat Boy still Boy Boy? Answer is yes. He is still. Duck wasn't able to assassinate him. For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, um, it's from my DCC campaign. If you want to get the records of what's going on in the DCC campaign, you can usually check out the Bill the Elf channel, which is another YouTube channel here, Bill the Elf, and it's got live plays of our campaign. Except the last two didn't get posted because Bill the Elf wasn't there, because Bill the Elf had gone on a business trip to England. So instead, we just played it and we didn't record anything because we're lazy. So, but yes, he is still alive. He almost got killed by the evil duck, but he survived with like 3 hit points and 3 points of luck left to his name, which is really quite remarkable when you think about it. Next question. How about an update or some teasers on the Invisible College? All right, that's a great question. I have actually completed the product itself. The writing of it is complete. Now we're just getting into the first stages of the work. I've been told by the publisher that it's now at the top of their docket for publishing. They've already started doing some of the layout. They've shown me some examples. The art and the layout is going to be really good. Day's work on Lion and Dragon and no, but I've seen some of the illustrations they're going to use, and they are really, really good. I think that the product is going to look fantastic, and it's still, as far as I know, scheduled to come out in the first half of next year, possibly the first quarter. Gary and Avriva says, hi from East Yorkshire, England. Well, hello, Gary and Avriva. Ty Santinelli says, hey, Pundit, thanks for the videos. Had a great time binging them, sorry. Thank you so much, Tyler. I really appreciate everybody who's watched the videos. I appreciate everybody who's a fan here. Just Flippin' Work says, hello. Well, hello to you. Good luck with what's going on there. I won't comment on it because they'll probably turn off this video again. I'm thinking they must have the short out in the video, because I still had internet. It was just YouTube that had crashed on me. I think that YouTube must have done that because I said something really controversial, like that Palladium products are good. Caged Bacon says, unrelated to RPGs, why do you live in Uruguay? Well, I really like Uruguay. I came here actually as a tourist. I really loved it, and I just decided to stay. Darren P says, hey, London, greetings from your frozen homeland. Yeah, well, not just frozen, but locked down, as I understand it. I'm very glad I'm not living in Canada right now. Here in Uruguay, there has never been a lockdown. And at the moment, it is 26 degrees Celsius. For you Americans, that means it's like summer hot, like, you know, t-shirt weather at the very least. Tyler Santinelli says 3,000 sub face reveal. Well, you got a little glimpse of me there, I think. But I tell you what, if I get to 100,000 subs, then I'll give you the full Monty. You know, you'll get the. Well, hang on, that means something a little different. Maybe not the full Monty, because I'd hate to be banned, and I would certainly deserve to be if I did that at 100,000 subs. But if I ever get to 100,000 subs, then I'll just say screw it, and you guys will have to deal with my face instead of my book covers. But trust me, my book covers look better. So, Hicksenthrope says, thoughts on BRP style D100? Well, I think it's a perfectly fine system. I don't have any problem with it. I mean, I like the system of Call of Cthulhu and you know, the other BRP style games. They work very well. You know, that's about it. That's about all I have to say about it. I mean, they're good. I've played a lot of games using that system. Darren P says, more kitties. Well, the kitties aren't likely to show up today. I'm filming in a different room. Whenever I do a live stream, I need to be able to be at my computer to keep track of the chat. So I probably aren't. They're probably not going to show up. Especially Big Chungus, who, as I pointed out at the start of the video, is sitting on a pizza box right now and has pretty much not moved. Except, I mean, she must be moving occasionally to eat and poop, but I never see her move. Every time I go down there, she's protectively sitting on that box because she knows at the moment that she's not, I'm going to throw it in the garbage. Spooky Ting says, thanks for speaking out about the gaming BS. I think wizards are too strong and DMs are too weak in mainstream TTRPG zeitgeist. Yes, I agree. I think that it's very funny that you had in the 2000s, you had this movement called the Forge, the story gaming movement, that they essentially wanted to take away the power of the DM. And they claimed that the reason for that was that the DM is an authoritarian, a tyrant, or what have you. But the real reason was that they wanted it to be a new philosophy of designing games, where games are designed in a very particular way by very intelligent people, which they all thought they were. Most of them weren't. Doing these really sophisticated games that nobody is supposed to be able to screw around with. So the idea that the DM can just change the rules, that would not suit them, right? So what they really wanted was to weaken the power of the DM to increase the power of the great celebrity game designer, which is what they all dreamed of being. It's very ironic that none of them ended up getting that, right? But anyway, and ironically, the thing that eventually led to is this pact, the alliance between the SJWs, because all those guys, all the four story gamer guys, became the first SJWs in the gaming hobby when that started happening. You know, when games became politicized. And the irony is that their desire to weaken the power of the DM in this alleged name of, you know, social justice in order to make themselves the most important. The root it's had is that the corporation, Wizards of the Coast, i.e. Hasbro, one of the largest and not particularly nice corporations in the world, is now the one in power, right? I think it's incredible. I saw on Twitter, somebody had posted this complaint about a meme basically about, oh, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had a game where we could where we could modify the game to suit our needs, but instead we have 5th edition, right? And dude, 5th edition is probably the most easily modified set of D&D rules ever created. Whatever else I say about it, I'm not saying that it's the best, I'm not saying it's the worst, but I am saying that it was intentionally designed from the beginning, and I know this because I was there. It was intentionally designed to be incredibly adaptable, to be able to very easily take stuff out and put stuff in and screw around with it willy-nilly without breaking the rule system the way that would break 3rd edition. So it's made for that. That's what the system is made for you to modify it. And our idea, that is to say, when I say our, I mean mine and Mike Merle's, when we were talking about this, when I was consulting, we both were having this kind of dream of a game that there'd be 1,000 points of light, right? That every DM would modify 5th edition to suit his particular campaign, that it would become one of the coolest things that people would love about the game, and everybody would be changing around the rules. And ironically, that's the thing we got the most wrong, because even though the system itself is perfect for that, everybody decided to instead play the game exactly as written, obeying the rules exactly as they are determined by corporate spokespeople that have no real context for the authority that they're exerting there, you know. Not naming any names. Jeremy Crawford. Anyway, that's the tragedy of that whole situation, you know. And yeah, the Wizards, and by Wizards we mean Hasbro, has become too powerful in terms of the influence it has on the game. And I don't mean because they own the biggest game. I mean because players, it's not a problem of the company, it's a problem of idiot players who have come to believe that a multinational corporation, most of the people whom are making the decisions there don't play at all, is supposed to be the one that is meant to decide for them how to play the game. You know, and that's just so unspeakably stupid. It's not on Hasbro, it's on the gamers. Dracopol says, greetings from the popular Socialist Republic of Toronto. Yeah, well, talk about screwed up. If I'm saying that Canada is in a bad state, I wouldn't want to be in Canada. Man, would I not want to be in Ontario. I am so disappointed in the Ford government there. Anyway, let's not get too much into Canadian politics because it'll bore all of the Americans and Europeans watching. Dark Knight of Hibernia says, Pundit, call from Europe. Can you do a read-through of Dark Albion? Also release Deus Vult, you bastard. I want to smash those heretics, praise the sun. Dark Knight. Did I not do a video review of Dark Albion already? Did I only do Lion and Dragon? Somebody, see, I've got this problem. I've got a really, really bad memory. You know, it's probably because I spent all of my college years completely high, right? So I think, I know I did a walkthrough of Lion and Dragon. Maybe I didn't do one of Dark Albion yet. Well, if I haven't, I will. I promise you, I'm going to. All right, I'll probably try to do it really soon. I thought I'd done it, but maybe I haven't. Somebody check. You know, I want to fact check on whether it's fake news or not that I haven't done a read through of Dark Albion already. As far as Deus Vult, well, I can tell you this. I'll do this little reveal for this live stream. I am working on a new product in the Lion and Dragon line. It'll be an OSR product that will be usable for everyone. There is absolutely no date set for when it's coming out yet. I still don't know who's going to publish it, whether it'll be Dom or Spec. But it is not actually going to be the Crusades source book, but it is going to be related to it. It's going to be set during the Crusades, and it's going to be a Silk Road source book, which a lot of people had also asked for. And I decided to do that one first. And the reason I decided to do that one first is because it was both harder and maybe weirder. So I'm hoping that it'll end up doing well in that sense. We'll see. But it is in very early days right now. It's something I'm very slowly working on, but it will eventually happen. But I can't tell you when. It might be 2 years from now. I don't know. Might be earlier than that, but I'm not sure. I'm nowhere near done yet. Lee now asks, why is the 5th edition player's handbook so terribly written? Well, you'd have to be more specific about what you think is badly written about it. I'm not sure. I didn't write any of it to be perfectly clear, but I did consult on it. And I don't think it's that terribly written. I think that if you mean in the sense of being easy to read or in the sense of the rules making sense, whether or not you like the rules or agree with them, I don't think it's badly set up, but I'd love to hear your arguments, Lee. Let's see here. Wolfgang says, what game did he say was a good replacement for Call of Cthulhu? Raiders of Riley. It's basically Call of Cthulhu with a more pulpy sort of style set just before World War I. And I will note, even though I don't make any money off of it now, I was a consultant on Raiders of Riley. I think it's a very, very good product. Tyler Sandelli says, praying for Uruguayan internet. Yeah. Yes, Taylor says, London here. We should do a Pundit fan get together. Call it PunditCon. Well, you know what? If you guys do it, you know, I'll see if I can make it. I'm not sure if I could or not, but I would love it. That would drive certain people just absolutely up the wall. My God, that would be so funny, actually. Wolfgang says, Wizards of the Coast is jamming your signal. Yeah, it was, maybe. I don't know. I think it was YouTube. I think, or maybe maybe it just YouTube allows a lot of stuff, but saying that Palladium is really great was shit. Hello. All right, can you guys hear me? I'm back, I think. Every time I say try turning the video resolution down, that's where I get disconnected. Lee now suggested that. That's a great idea, except I have no idea how to turn down the video resolution. Sorry. Let's see, 144p is fine if it's just a static image. Well, yeah, basically, most of my video is a static image unless my cats show up. So if I could figure out how to alter the resolution, the problem is you have to understand something here. I am a total technophobe. I was not one of the cool computer nerd kids. I was one of those nerdy kids who was busy, listening to punk rock and getting high. So I could only dream of being the popular computer nerd kid. I have no idea how to do almost any of this stuff, which is one of the big reasons why I needed other people to do inappropriate characters. That's one of the big reasons why on my channel you're never going to see me interviewing someone, because YouTube makes it too hard. I don't understand how to do it. And I'm just not clever at that sort of thing. I'm a humanities guy, not an engineering or science guy. All right, so I'm glad for all of you still watching. Wow, 53. That's awesome. Tyler Santelli says Pundit is a Four Eyes. Well, I am technically, yeah, that's true. And believe it or not, I've just gotten to the point where I need progressive lenses, what they used to call bifocals, So I'm getting on in years, I guess. But I guess that's okay. Did you ever go? Darren P asks, I'm out of turn here, but it says, did you ever go to SNFU shows in Edmonton? Yeah, I did. I also saw Green Day in Edmonton before they ever hit it big, which was funny because I thought they were really good back then before they really hit it big. Let me see. Still catching way behind here on the comments. Still trying to catch up. Ben says, rumor is Hasbro might sell Wizards of the Coast. If so, who do you think might buy it? Let me make something clear here. Hasbro will never ever sell D&D. I don't think they can sell Wizards of the Coast without selling D&D. I think they might shut down Wizards of the Coast. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but it could happen if Wizards screwed up, right? Like, let's say the SJWs have taken over the shop. They insist on doing a 6th edition. They make all kinds of promises to the corporate suits that it's going to be so much more successful because suddenly it won't just be, the tiny group of straight white males, but the much larger demographic of disabled black trans lesbians who will be playing it, right? And so that means that they'll make 10 times as much as 5th edition made. And on all those promises, they release an edition that makes 4th look like a work of genius and a fine product. And of course, the thing tanks, and because get woke, go broke. And at that point, I think Hasbro. The reason Wizards is still going, and the reason why SJWs can get away with what they've gotten away with in Wizards at the moment, is because D&D is still extremely successful. It's continuing to run on the success of the rule set itself, which is fundamentally sound, and the products have not yet reached a point of sufficient SJW alteration to make most people give up on it. So it's running on that momentum. If you cut that momentum off at the knees by changing editions, then that's going to be a big disaster for Hasbro. For Wizards. And the thing is, Hasbro doesn't, like 5th edition was D&D's last chance as far as Hasbro is concerned. Certainly it was Wizards of the Coast last chance. It turned out to be a superstar hit, like hit it right out of the park. It was a Hail Mary, but they did it. And so that's why Wizards is still alive and D&D is still being produced. If a next edition of D&D is a disaster, which it would be if the SJW did it, then I don't Coast, they would potentially mothball D&D, continuing to sell those, and then in a few years they would do one of two things. They would either come out with some kind of legacy of D&D, which would be like one of the older rule sets, that would have some new packaging and some new stuff, but basically like it would just be to make an evergreen version of D&D the way that there's an evergreen version of Monopoly, or it would involve licensing Dungeons and Dragons to another company, but never selling it. Hasbro is a big multinational. They never sell intellectual property. They never have a reason to. They can sit on a dead intellectual property for 20 years and then try to revive it then. It doesn't matter to them. They can license it out. People will pay to have the very right to publish D&D. So why would Hasbro sell it? Hasbro D&D. And it's never, I suspect it'll never sell Wizards because Wizards value, right? Without D&D and Magic, right? But the same applies to Magic. They're never going to sell. So if Wizards screws up D&D, then the gaming division of Wizards that makes tabletop games, that makes D&D, is going to be shut down. If they screw up Magic, that's going to be shut down. If they screw up both, then Wizards is going to be shut down. I think that's what'll happen. Let's see what else we've got here. Rage Hall says, I'm new to OSR play and I've only played one for about 3 years. We're now supposed to be conquerors and kings and make money and do things running kingdoms. I'm breaking even and making money, but it seems so tedious, it's a chore. Well, Rage Hall, I don't know if you mean that you're playing Adventure Conquer King. That's one OSR set. Keep in mind there's lots of other ways to play OSR games. It's, you know, the domain management system isn't for everyone, and one as complicated as you see. And I don't mean it's bad. It's just complicated. That doesn't make it bad. For some people, complicated makes it awesome, right? But like what you see in Adventure Conquer King, that appeals to certain people, but really doesn't to other people. Which is why, for example, in the Dark Albion source book, I put in, or setting book rather, I put in a set of domain rules that are like way simpler. They're much easier because I know that some people want to be able to have that part of your running a noble house or whatever, but without having to go to all the minute detail of management of resources that Axe has. And really Axe, Adventure Conquer King, does that so well. Why would I copy that, right? But anyways, keep in mind there's lots of other OSR games to try that look nothing like the one OSR game you've played so far. That's the thing. OSR is incredibly diverse. Dark Knight of Hibernia says, Pundit, could you do a response to Lindy Beige's video on RPGs? I'm not sure what Lindy Beige's videos are. You'd have to send me more info here, you know, join, you know, sign up. Well, if don't sign up on Twitter, but if you're already on Twitter, friend, you know, follow me on Twitter. I'm Kazimir Urbanski there. And you could send me a message about it. And see some yet, right? I'm always grateful for that. Rollstat says, how is it possible that we're only celebrating 3,000 subscribers? We should be celebrating 300,000. If anyone deserves it, it's you, Pundit. Thank you so much, Rollstats. Well, the fact is, this is a niche hobby, right? And so this is a niche type. The focus is on RPGs, tabletop RPGs, and it's not. Although this tonight is a kind of improv show, I guess. It's improv chat, but so you know, get 3,000 subscribers is quite an accomplishment, really. And the fact is, again, one of the big points that I'm happy about is that a large percentage of those people that have subscribed watch a lot of my videos, like most of them, attentively, right? Like the stats I get for that are really surprising because there are people who talk about tabletop RPGs that have more subscribers than me, but they get way less views per video. So that's impressive. And we're still rising. Who knows where we'll get to? I don't know if I'll get to 300,000. I hope I do. That would be nice, but that would I'd be a bit surprised. I'm not sure if this channel would get to that level, but why not aim for it, right? I just know that the SJWs claimed that I remember when I first did this channel, and you know, at first I was like, you know, working my way to 100 subscribers. They were all laughing, right? They were all saying, "Aha, look at this! He's just such a failure," right? Just like they've done of everything I've ever done. When I did the RPG site, when I started my first RPGs, writing, you know, my blog. They were constantly predicting that I was going to crash and burn, and every single time I've proved them wrong. It's so much fun to laugh in their faces about it. So I'm sure that some of you are watching right now, and this video is a particular fuck you to you guys. Let's see here. What else have we got to talk about? Solomon Kane says, didn't the Axe guy get in hot water last year because he dared to work for Milo? Yes. Alex Macris of Defy Media is the guy behind Adventure Conqueror King. He's a great guy. He's my former boss because I worked for Defy Media. Top-notch person, really big thinker. He recently did a really article on the results of the election, which I won't comment on because it'll probably get the live stream stopped. But you guys should totally look it up. It's very, very interesting. It's Trump crossing the Rubicon. And frankly, he got totally unfairly attacked because of his political affiliations, right? Like it's ridiculous to attack anyone for having, for promoting the work of a well-known right-wing figure. It's suggesting that there's something wrong with that, and there isn't. Well, I guess the only thing wrong with that is that he was working for Milo and not for me. The problem, by they, I think you mean Wizards, never state how modifiable Fifth is, so no. The problem is that certain guys decide they want it to be the of D&D, and of course it doesn't suit their interest to say, hey guys, you can change this any way you like, right? It suits their interest to say, no, you have to come and ask us, and we're going to give you the proper answers of how the game rules work, and that's the only way they should work, right? So that's kind of a pity, but it's still the fault of gamers for falling for that, right? For thinking that that's how you have to do this, right? Like that you can't house mod it, because I mean, in the DMG, it explicitly says it. Like the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide makes it very clear how easy it is to modify it, and that you can and should modify it, and it suggests modifications, and nobody uses them, and that's such a pity, because that's part of what makes the game so practical. Jacobo the Fifth says, talk about, or Jacobo V, I'm not sure which, maybe it's just Jacobo V, says, talk about spirituality, magic, and Aleister Crowley one of these days. Well, I just finished today giving a short lecture in a private context about Aleister Crowley and Boleskine House and the history of his involvement with it. I guess if people have specific questions about magic and the occult and Aleister Crowley, I would try to answer them. But you'd have to be a bit more specific than that. John G says, I've heard you mention your work on D&D 5e before. Can you elaborate on which of your ideas made it into the final product? Well, my foremost guidance was at the initial stages. And what I would say, it's not so much specific points. Like, for example, when I was one of the big play testers for the Doctor Who RPG, I was the one that came up with the initiative system there, and that ended up in the final product. That was me. That was entirely my idea, right? And in fact, it was also my idea to change from rolling 1d6 to rolling 2d6. So I can give you specific examples there. But in 5th edition, I guess the thing that I really pushed was that the game should be kept simple, that the game should be very easily modifiable, right? That you should minimize the level of interconnectedness of mechanics so that you can take out a certain mechanic or change a certain mechanic without it affecting everything else, like the cascade of problems that happened in 3rd edition, where if you change one thing, then suddenly a dozen feats or more become useless because you've changed that one thing, right? This is to avoid that sort of stuff. I also was a huge advocate at a time when there was some serious doubt about whether they were going to include it or not, of the advantage and disadvantage system. I'm not sure I'm the only one, but I know that I was one of the main people that really, really pushed on Mike Mearls to say, no, hang on. You got to take out all the other modifiers. You got to focus on this. Make this your thing, right? Both advantage and disadvantage. Because there was talk at one point that they might take away one thing or take away the other, or take away both, that it might not work. There were people that liked it and people that didn't. And I was a big advocate for it because I said, this is the most innovative thing about this edition. And it's going to make it very different, both for the DM to play more easily if he's a beginner, and for the players to play more easily if they're beginners, because suddenly nobody has to be looking up or memorizing a whole series of pluses and minuses, and that takes away some of that element of the really problematic third edition game mastery, right? Like system mastery that was so much of a barrier for people to get into it, right? Where in third edition, you were being directly rewarded by the game for knowing more about the game and its tiny, minute details, for being a rules lawyer, for studying all the source books and being able to advocate for stuff to be included in the DM's game, right? All that sort of stuff, right? If you could nitpick modifiers and read the rules and the exceptions to the rules and the exceptions to the exceptions, then you would end up being more successful in the game than some guy that's a real casual and is just kind of trying to show up once a week and play and doesn't spend every waking hour reading every single D&D product, right? Which at the time, third edition did that pretty much on purpose. We know at this point it was pretty much intentional to try to get people to buy all the books, right? But it was counterproductive in the long term because it meant only the most hardcore nerds would get into it, right? It made a real barrier for newbies to enter. And so one of the things I said is it's got to be simple. Dare to simplify. That was my motto that I said over and over again to to Mearls, and that from what I understand, Mearls communicated to all of his workshop, right? So I think that was one of the big things I contributed. Frank says pundits should have videos going over each of his books about every 6 months. Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the old videos are there. People can look at them. I don't want this to turn into too much of an ad channel, though obviously I like promoting my stuff in the videos. Rage Hall says, do you think it is good for monsters and NPCs to be divorced from player character creation the same or different? I don't like the trend in 4th or 5th edition for monsters to be different to PCs. Well, no, I don't have a problem with that. Like, you look at old D&D in 1st edition, monsters didn't work the same way as player characters. NPCs didn't work the same way as player characters, though you could make an NPC using the same system by which you made a player character. I'm not a big fan of worrying about that sort of stuff, right? Like, I often don't really pay too much attention to the monster stats when I'm DMing, right? I decide what I want their stats to be, and that's what they are, and I don't use any system justification for it, right? So I don't worry too much about that. I want it to always be fair for all the players, right? That the rules for every player is the same, but the monsters and the NPCs of the world are different. They just have to be consistent within themselves, right? Like, you can't have an NPC wizard who can do something with alchemy that a PC wizard with alchemy can't do. You can definitely have an NPC wizard who can do something with a weird power that the player character doesn't have. That's fine. So, but you can't do something where it looks like he can do a thing with the exact same ability or skill that the player character has that the player character can't do. Dracopol says, add me to those who want to see Lion and Dragon go to the Crusades with brutally honest cultural takes. Well, that will happen sometime after I finish this Silk Road game. I'm gonna do a Crusades setting, I promise. And it will be brutally honest cultural takes, which means it'll probably, the parts of it will look really, really bad for the Crusaders, There will be people that will look like total dicks in there, And some of it will look good, Saladin, I have to say, was a pretty cool guy, but so was Richard Lionheart. They were both pretty cool guys. That's why history um, has remembered both of them very nobly. And one thing that's very interesting, that I don't know if everyone knows, is that Suleiman, Saladin was looked at better by history in Europe than he was in the Middle East. In the European context of history, Saladin is remembered as this kind of, noble Muslim king who was a fierce enemy. He was obviously the opponent of the Crusaders, but he had a sort of honor, right? And he was really capable, and he was admired for that. And he was fair in his own way for a heathen, right? In their point of view. Whereas in the Muslim world, he's remembered as having been too nice, right, and too soft on the Crusaders. There's some fairly negative opinions of Saladin and of his immediate dynasty. Some of that is also related to stuff that happened later and to dynastic issues, you could say. But yeah, so it will be honest in as much as the history. Yeah, it's not going to be making a comment on contemporary politics. It's going to be talking about the history as it was. The guys that look like total assholes are the assassins. Those guys, they're badass. Don't get me wrong, they're going to look badass, but they were such bastards. Someone just said, stop mentioning palladium. Yeah, that's right. I need to shut up about that. Let's see here. Commandant VHS says, love the RPG site. Well, thank you. It is probably the biggest discussion forum for role-playing games that is based on free speech principles. If you haven't heard about it, there will be a link. Well, actually, there isn't a link in this description because I didn't have time to put it on, but I will put it on when I'm done the live stream. And if not, check out absolutely any other video I have and look at the description, and there will be a link to the RPG site there. Even E says, Evan E, I guess, says, where can I find people on the internet to play Lion and Dragon with? Well, that's a good question. Check it out. Well, if not here, on Mewe, there is a Lion and Dragon Mewe group. If you're not on Mewe, I really recommend it if you're a gamer, because there's all kinds of groups on gaming that are very active. So what you have to do is you have to join Mewe, have to add me as a friend on Mewe, and then search for the groups there's the Inglorious OSR group, there's Lion and Dragon, there's a DCC group, there's Tenker's Tavern, there's a general OSR group, and all of those have a lot of activity and are well worth following. And in the Lion and Dragon group, you could probably try to see if you can drum up some people who would be willing to play with you online. Ben says, the RPG Pundit needs an avatar. Well, no, not really, because it's better for me in marketing terms to use my books as an avatar. All right, Rollstat says, no fact check Pundit, no read through of Dark Albion. Lion and Dragon, yes. Old School Companion, yes. Dark Albion missing. Okay, well, I know what I have to do, guys. I'm gonna make a read through of Dark Albion very soon, I promise. I can't believe I missed it. I guess it was because it was a bit predating this channel. Lee Now says, regarding the 5th edition player's handbook, there's just information spread out everywhere. Poor cross-referencing, poor indexing, does not have what I would consider concise, precise wording. Well, okay, I mean, I don't know. I haven't used it enough in a practical sense to really be able to accurately argue one way or the other. So you could be totally right. I'm not going to say you're not. But I don't know for sure. If anyone disagrees with Lee, feel free to say so. Now, of course, most people watching here are probably OSR people, right? So I'm getting a feeling that you probably won't get someone arguing with you on it, but I'd like to hear it. Judd Gossett says, I just had to get progressive lenses. I hate that name. Yeah, well, welcome to the club. Evan E says, also, maybe a stupid question, maybe I'm blind, but where in the L&D books do I find the base saving throw for DC for PCs? Okay, so if you look at Lion and Dragon, in the section on character creation, when it's telling you how to make a 0-level character, there is a part that says saving throw base D, or base save, something like that. And it's the base DC for the base saving throw for all PCs at the start of the game is 16 modified by your charisma. So minus your charisma modifier. So you have a +1 charisma, it's 15. If you have a -1 charisma, it's 17, right? That's where you find it. It's in that section. Fred Daniel says, Lion and Dragon is great. Dark Albion awesome. When will we get your take on the Crusades? Wow, people really want the Crusades. I don't know. I'm already a good ways into the Silk Road book. I hope that some of you'd like that idea too. It will start. I mean, it'll be in the area. I mean, the setting of the Silk Roads book will be just after Richard Lionheart retakes Acre and the other areas that had been conquered by Saladin, except Jerusalem, of course. Let's see what else we have here. Evan says, take magic out of D&D 6th edition. Game designers are drunk on it and need to be cut off or make it punishingly difficult to be a wizard. Well, yeah. Problem with D&D style magic. It's always got a little bit of an issue. That's why I kind of like the totally different way I did magic in Lion and Dragon. Wizards are still awesome. They're awesome a little more, especially at low levels, for their knowledge than for their magical power. And then at higher levels, they can be really awesome magically, but not by like firing bolts of energy at the moment. They have to pre-prepare shit, and that makes it a little bit different. It balances it out. It means that they're still not likely to be the most effective guys at killing a bunch of people at the moment on a battlefield. That should always be the warrior. What else? Chat says spooky thing. Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance? If I had to pick between the two, Forgotten Realms. Dark Knight of Hibernia says, Pundit, I have a question about Dark Albion. Was Joan of Arc a heretic? Because I would imagine those from France would side with the frogmen. Or was Joan truly a sun worshipper? Well, in my original Dark Albion campaign, she was a heretic. She was a chaos cultist that was sent to try to manipulate the humans in the Frogland territories to fight against Henry V, right? And the was it Henry V? Yeah, I guess it was Henry V by then. To fight against the English, anyways. And so she might have been Henry VI by then. But anyways, she was set up. Yeah, Henry VI, right? So she was set up as a kind of false flag operation to try to manipulate the humans under Frogman rule, which explains why she was burnt at the stake. Because if she really was a sun worshipper, she wouldn't have been burnt at the stake by the English. By the way, we have had an appearance here. Let me see if I can show you. Look who's here, which means that the pizza box is unguarded. Hey, psst, psst, psst. Hey, your fans are watching you. All right. She's a bit busy doing something behind the books there. Probably going to knock over my books any second now, cause a total disaster. Let's see. I'm going to try to skip a few questions here, going a little bit ahead. Anon Andrew says, critical role, barf. Yes, agreed. Gamer Video says, I love the OSR. Agreed. Yes. Those are easy. I like these kinds of questions. Dracopole says, say more about how SJWs at Wizards impede production by requiring representation in Dragonlance ordering revisions and impeding Gale Force 9's translations of D&D stuff for sensitive localization. Well, You've pretty much summed it up there. You know, like it's pretty obvious that I think Dragonlance is something that they instinctively hate. Forgotten Realms they hate a little less because Forgotten Realms has much less morality to it, which makes it a very cool sword and sorcery setting, which has sadly always under TSR and later under Wizards been somehow bowdlerized. Right, it's been made more tame than it ought to be. It ought to be Forgotten Realms ought to be like Elric level sword and sorcery, and that's cool, right? But instead, it's always been kind of more milquetoast. It's been made more milquetoast by TSR because they were afraid of the Christians, and then it was made more milquetoast by Wizards because they just didn't know what to do with it. And now it's being turned into 2020 Fantasy Seattle by the SJWs, right? They know they can subvert they can subvert Forgotten Realms because they have no it has no fundamental morality to it. But Dragonlance is fundamentally a morality tale. Not only that, it's basically a Mormon morality tale. The people that made that game, that setting, are Mormons, and it's telling a Mormon story that borrows elements from Mormon myth, you could say, right? Stuff right out of the stories of Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and stuff like that. So they hate it on a even if they don't realize that, they hate it on that visceral level, that it represents a type of good evil morality that they know is their enemy, right? Which is why they wanted to make sure it would never see print again. Judd Goswick says, what is your opinion of the big boom in solo RPGs? Is there a big boom? I mean, I know that there have been a couple of solo RPGs that came out, like Scarlet Heroes, that did okay. I'd have to hear more examples to really judge how much solo RPG products have been booming. I'm not too familiar with that, to be honest. Darren P says, I watch all of Pundit videos, usually within minutes of uploading. Literally my favorite RPG channel. Well, thank you so much. Please spread the word. Remember, if you want to support me, if you want to help me out, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can go on to DriveThruRPG and buy the RPG Pundit Presents products. They're all cheap and they're all really good. They're gonna give you stuff that you can use in your OSR games. They're not exclusive to Lion and Dragon. There's a bunch of Gonzo RPG stuff there, and even the Medieval Authentic stuff is made so it's easy to apply to any OSR system. Or you could purchase my bigger products like Lion and Dragon, like Cults of Chaos, which is an excellent source book, again, for any OSR game. If you haven't gotten it, it is the game, the book that I'm most proud of, to be honest, is probably Cults of Chaos, because it does one thing, which is to generate sinister sects, cults, and heresies, but does it really, really well. And you can use it over and over again. You'll never get the same group twice, right? And it'll give you all the details you need to set up a justification for an adventure. But you can also support me by liking this video and by sharing this and other videos anywhere you can, because that's how we get more subscribers. People start to watch it when they see it posted somewhere. It's about RPGs, they kind of like it, and then they subscribe, right? So this is a big help too. So thank you to everyone who has helped me out in all of this. I'm really, really appreciative. Dark Knight says, Pundit, thank you for showing a better way to roleplay. You are the Jesus of D&D. Well, I'm not too sure about that. I wouldn't go that far, Dark Knight. I don't know who I'd say I am. I'm a bit too much of an enfant terrible to be Jesus, though. Although, I liked recently, I saw this Christian, I follow a lot of Christians on Twitter, and I saw this one Christian meme basically that said, when you say, what would Jesus do? You should keep in mind that pulling out a whip and kicking over tables and attacking moneylenders is not out of the question, right? As an answer, right? So, Jesus had his badass moments too. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say I'm the Jesus of D&D. I don't know exactly what I would say. I'm maybe the Doc Holliday of gaming. I think it has something to do. Okay, that's nothing. Tenkar's Tower, blah, 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 nothing. Okay. I don't really want to talk about 10 Cars Tavern, though nothing wrong with it. Dark Knight says, I only found your channel because I wanted someone to articulate the problems of Critical Role, so I thank you for that. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I've done more videos than I ever really wanted to regarding either Critical Role or Matt Mercer. It's just that he keeps showing up in the news in context of the sort of thing I criticize, right? I don't want to be famous as like the guy that complains about Critical Role. That's not really the point, right? But sometimes I just got to tell people what's going on, right? Chad says, Macris is a libertarian, so he isn't left enough. Well, I'm not sure if Macris would call himself, strictly speaking, a libertarian. We'd have to ask him, but it's definitely a case of him just not being left enough, right? Let's see. Tyler Santinelli says, Pundit, are you into Sinhexamhammer 666? Seems like you guys have a few overlapping interests. You know what? I've seen a little bit of his stuff, but I can't say I've been like really following him very, very attentively. If you want to know the sort of people that I do follow very attentively, well, you know, Jordan Peterson is one of them. I guess you could say I'm the Jordan Peterson of gaming. I'd be really honored if people said that. You know, that would work. Bit better than Jesus, anyways. I even have kind of the same accent because we're both in the same place. We went to the same school, just a few years apart. You know. But I follow Sargon, watch his videos relatively frequently. I watch some Tim Pool. I have a kind of love-hate relationship with Tim Pool. I think he's very good at what he does. Unfortunately, what he does to me seems a bit trite and repetitive sometimes, but he's all right. Nothing wrong with him, right? Diversity in comics, the quartering, those guys are great. I'm sure I'm missing a few. I'd look it up, but I'd have to end the live stream to do that. And like I said, my memory is absolutely terrible. But maybe I should pay more attention to Sin Hexenhammer. I don't know. I don't know where. Does he have a YouTube channel? I don't think I'm even subscribed to him if he has one. So let me know. Is he just a Twitter guy? I'm not sure what he does, to be honest. I've seen some posts of his that I saw and I thought, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, he's making sense, right? But that's about it. Rage Hall says, when I was looking at Drive-Thru RPG and the Trove, I did see more solo adventuring material than I expected. Well, that might be true. I might have just missed all that. Keep in mind, there's tons of product at Drive-Thru RPG that don't really ever sell. But if you saw those products and they were selling well, like they were getting bestseller status, then you would have a point. Yeah. Malaquin says, I liked Advantage and Disadvantage so much that I brought it into my to my GURPS games. Okay, yeah, great. That's good. You know, I've used some elements of Advantage and Disadvantage in my OSR games too. I didn't put them into the Lion and Dragon rules as such, but I do often use them. I use them a lot of times, specifically in the context of blessings or curses, right? So one of the frequent things that could happen if you have been in some way cursed or affected, say, by an undead or something like that, would be that you would have disadvantage on certain types of rolls or on all of your rolls. I think that works really well. And ditto advantage could be an aspect of having supernatural support. I use that specific type of application of advantage and disadvantage in my upcoming Invisible College games and the mechanics of certain powers and abilities that you can get through certain rituals. I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice here. How long have we been at this? Anyway, it's not even an hour. Crazy. Let's continue. Let's see what else we have to talk about here. Oops. Just missed out on something here. Oh, damn. Oh, here we go. Guys, you're talking about a lot about mechanics here, certain products. I will eventually catch up at this rate. Rollstat says the modern view of Saladin originates mainly from the Talisman and Nathan the Wise. Well, maybe so, but that originates from earlier Victorian views and then from previous lore. I mean, like Saladin has been a figure that had some begrudging respect in the Christian world since the Crusades. I mean, it's very clear that Richard Lionheart had enormous respect for the dude. Let's see here. Dark Knight of Iberia says, in Dark Albion, you mentioned Levant is the land of the sun. I was wondering, was it a real place? Well, the Levant is the term for what today is that area, that coastal area around what is today Israel, Lebanon, parts of Syria. And there was the context there is that the unconquered sun religion got to Rome via a Syriac sect of Elagabalus, which later on was the Sol Invictus. So there was a particular city, I think it was in Tyre maybe, that was kind of the holy city of that sect. And so in that context, since in the Dark Albion setting, I just filed off the serial numbers from Christianity and made it the unconquered sun, I figured I couldn't just have Jerusalem be the place. It had to be that where did the unconquered sun religion come from? What would be their holy land? Well, it would be that area. It would be Syria. The sun worship, the particular unconquered sun religion started. Tyler Sanelli says, wait, please tell me France and Lion and Dragon is called the Froglands. In Dark Albion, the setting, it's called Frogland, right? It is literally ruled, the upper class are chaos worshipping frogmen, okay? That's in that specific setting, in the Dark Albion setting. However, in Lion and Dragon, there is no comment made about that because Lion and Dragon is meant to be usable for generic medieval authentic play, right? So in as much as any mention is made of England or France or something, I just call it England, I call it France. I talk about the church and it's implied to be the Catholic Church, but if you already own Dark Albion, you see the church, it means the Church of the Unconquered Sun because they're basically the same thing, right? So yeah, if you want to see the story of the Frogmen and the Froglands, you got to get Dark Albion. Dracopol says, in the Silk Road game, Borat is a legitimate character, as are all the people from the stands. Yeah, well, you're not wrong, right? But the thing is, those places became the shitholes that they became because the Mongols razed everything to the ground. And while both Chinese and Arab culture never fully recovered, and Turkish culture, all of that, never fully recovered from the Mongol invasions, psychologically as civilizations, they're still paying the price for that humiliation today. The area of the Silk Road that you're talking about not just paid the price, it ceased to exist, and all that was left was basically trash, right? Which is why we have that vision of what that place is today. In 1200 AD, the most populated, the most wealthy, and the most sophisticated cultures were there. The city of Mers, which almost no one knows about today, had millions of people living in it around 1190. Right, and then that would be dramatically dropped to 0 people living in it a few decades later when Genghis Khan went through there and razed the city and left a literal mountain of skulls of all the people he murdered there to set an example to every other place. Like he picked the biggest, coolest, richest, fanciest city, possibly one of the top in the world. It might not have been the top in the world because there might have been, a couple of other cities that would have rivaled it in size. But it was a massive, these were centers of civilization during the time of the Silk Road before the Mongols. They weren't, they were city-states, a lot of them. Some of them were part of the territories of either the Turks or the Uyghurs or the Persians had kind of declined in power by then. But there's really interesting politics to it. They're far away from the Christian European point of view, but these were places that had powerful influence and might of their own in their own way. They were merchant cities. They weren't really warrior cities, which is why Genghis Khan just absolutely flattened them, right? But they were immensely sophisticated. So they wouldn't, if you were playing it true to form, when you went to those areas, you'd actually see people that were really, really cultured. They were very rich in this mix of Persian, Indian, and Chinese culture, which was very unique to them. It would have looked very exotic to us, but it was very sophisticated, right? And then they all died, and they were just wiped even from memory, right? The average person today, anywhere outside of the Middle East, anyways, has no idea what a place like Mers was, right? Let's see. Judd Goswick says, "Move the coffee. We know that Chungus knocking things over would be inevitable." Good warning. I have now moved the coffee because that's going to be a big part of the inevitable disaster when Chungus gets up. She's sitting right now looking at the wall for no particular reason. She does that sometimes. Let's see what else here. Tyler Santel says, "Another question, Pundit. My players always want to be evil except in name. Totally suspicious of everyone they meet and will lie, cheat, and steal for convenience. Advice? Well, depends on what you're running. But if you know that that's the type of players you're running, don't run a game where they're all meant to be heroes. You can work with that no matter what game you're running. Are you running Lion and Dragon in a Dark Albion setting? Well, then make it set up from the start that they're like gutter trash in London. They might be members of a gang or wanting to enter one of the gangs that works for the guilds of London. That's all in the book, right? Like you get all the details about that in Dark Albion. So, they could be doing some serious urban adventuring, playing parts of the London mob, as it were, getting involved in all kinds of really interesting urban, drama in the game. They could be having adventures in the tunnels under the city, going out on missions for the guilds. My point of view is you've got to play to what your players want to do. You can't change that. So use it, right? Make use of whatever they want to be, right? If they want to be great noble heroes, then make them great noble heroes. But if it's very clear from how they play that that's not what they want to be, then don't make that kind of campaign. Ovaltine Patrol says, "Someone wanted to run some Barrier Peaks type action in Dark Albion. Would your sci-fantasy game sync up?" Well, I don't know. If you were going to be true to kind of the medieval authentic ideal, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure. First of all, by sci-fantasy, if you mean Star Adventure, which is a space opera game, that really wouldn't, I think, sync up very well. Except mechanically, like if you wanted to introduce technology from Star Adventure, I guess you could. In a way, the World of the Last Sun, which is really weird and wacky, might sort of fit the medieval style better. Medieval is very gonzo in its own medieval way, right? So if you use some of the stuff from like the section on, the floating islands and flying ships, that could work, maybe. Yeah, that might be a better answer. Dark Knight says, "Pundit, I'm pretty sure I saw it somewhere, but are you a sun worshiper?" Well, no, I yes and no. I guess you could say it's hard to say what I am. I am fundamentally, I am a admirer of Neo-Confucianism. I believe in the Taiji, in the hieroglyphic monad of Dr. John Dee. I believe in the principles laid down in the Fama Fraternitas. I think the sun is a symbol in occultism of the manifestation, not of God, but of the manifestation of God as a bridge towards man, and also of man as a bridge towards God, like it's the attainable part of God. So I guess that's what I would say. But I'm not, if you're asking, am I a neo-pagan? The answer would be no, not a neo-pagan in any way, right? I dabbled with that back in my very early years of exploration into this stuff, but today I certainly wouldn't call myself that. I'm a Mason. I probably just lost a bunch of like QAnon fans because I said that. Jared Gossick says, any plans to do more stuff for Star Adventure? There are no plans at the moment to do more stuff for Star Adventure. I'm going to be really honest. I made Star Adventure as a rule set because I wanted to have a Lion and Dragon type rule set for space adventures, and specifically because I wanted to run a Star Wars campaign. And so I made those rules because I didn't want to run it with any of the existing Star Wars rules. So that's pretty much what moved me to do that. But I have no plans. I mean, obviously I can't do Star Wars material, so I'm not going to do that. I have no special plans for anything in particular with that will be added to Star Adventure, but I'm not saying it couldn't happen. It might be possible. I might someday do a setting that would be sort of like a feudal space opera, right? Like the 100 Years' War in space or something like that. That could be cool. But right now, that's just like the shadow of an idea. So don't expect anything anytime soon. JP Moore says, I think everyone has a love-hat relationship with Tim Pool. And the funny thing is, I don't know if that's a typo or if that's brilliant. Well done, JP Morris. Love hat. Love hat. Oh, what a bastard. Tyler says, I love Sargon's new endeavor, the Lotus Eaters. Yeah, I think that's good. He's doing okay. Ovaltine says, I wish Tim would slow down and stammer less, but I mean, if you don't like his stammering, what are you thinking about me, right? I tend to ramble at least as much as Peterson does. I tend to stammer more than Tim Pool does. I get a lot of ums and ahs in there. I don't really care, but I've had some people say that they don't like listening to me because of it. Although when I get excited, I tend to lose all of that. Like the more pissed off I get, or the more excited I get about a topic, the less I ended up stammering or humming and hawing or any of that, or getting distracted by side matter. Sticks X and Hammer is a YouTuber and he's all over Altec. Well, I'm gonna have to take a better look at him. The Quartering is live streaming for 1 million subscribers. Now that bastard, why is he live streaming at the same time as me? Have some compassion, man. You're trying to get to 1 million. I'm just at 3,000. Anyway, it's all right. I feel, I really hope he gets there. It's good for him. Magic the Gathering obviously has a bigger fan base than we do, but I would love it if I could get to 10,000. That would be amazing. We'll just take things one step at a time. I'm happy to do these videos for everybody watching me right now. I'll be happier if there's more people, obviously, but I'm going to keep doing it no matter what, as long as there are people interested. Chad says, advantages, great to cut down on modifiers. Definitely. I think that's a good thing to do, to cut down on modifiers. Dracopol says, the Quartering does up to 5 videos a day with hyperbole gotcha titles. Yeah, well, that's one thing. Maybe my channel would grow faster if I did if I was much more dedicated to it, if I did multiple videos a day, or even just one video a day, if I tried to do, fancy titles and stuff like that. But that's just not me. With me, you're getting what you get, right? And you guys obviously like it because you're here listening to me right now. Maybe that makes it harder for me to grow but I really don't want to compromise quality, because I do think, you see this both in terms of videos. I'm lucky in that I can talk like crazy, right? Like you give me a subject and I'll go on about it for 20 minutes and then somebody has to force me to stop, right? But I tend to go on about it without repeating myself too much. Whereas you get stuff like Tim Pool, you listen to him and the first 5 minutes are the subject, and then he repeats those first 5 minutes over and over again for another 20 minutes. And that's largely, I think, to, get to some kind of magic number of time in order to fulfill the algorithm requirements, right? And they do multiple videos. Some topics, there's always, every day there's going to be one topic that's going to be kind of interesting, and there's going to be a couple that are like barely worth making a video over, and then there's going to be one that's like, why is this even a video? And so a lot of that is just being done to desperately get in the views, to work the system, and it's, I think that's, it might not be counterproductive. It might be the secret to their success, but it's not something I want to do. It's the same reason I don't want to work for Wizards of the Coast. Like, why the hell would I want to work in a cubicle and be told this is what you have to make with these guidelines? You can't do anything other than this. You just have to write the product of what we're telling you to make, right? Like, why would I do that? And they're essentially just making the product of what the YouTube algorithm is telling them to make, right? So it's not worth it for me. Maybe they like it that way. Maybe that's worth it for them. But I'm never going to be that kind of guy, right? I've never have been. I've always done everything uncompromisingly. So I'm going to keep doing it uncompromisingly. And I hope people like me for it. But if they don't, they don't. Rage Hall says, I watched your video on how fantasy RPG should only have one god. And I'm trying to make a setting for Dungeons and Dragons. And I normally really like to interact with all the gods and goddesses. Well, like that's fine. You can do that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but keep in mind that then it's not really going to be a medieval fantasy setting. Then you really shouldn't make it a medieval fantasy setting, because a lot of the premises of medieval fantasy depends on a monotheistic environment. If you want to have a setting where you're interacting with gods and goddesses, consider making it a classical setting, like ancient Rome, like that style of culture. Or like the Vikings or something like that, or an East Indian setting, or there's a lot of options. But specifically, medieval Europe doesn't make any sense if it isn't monotheistic. So, you want to consider that, and maybe that might be cool for you if you want to have a game where there's a lot of interaction with this pantheon of gods and goddesses. Make sure you get your pantheons right too. Like I'll talk a lot in that video and some other videos about how pagan pantheons have never been produced the right way in RPG settings. So try to make your pagan pantheon seem sensible in a way that doesn't look like it's been prefabricated, which is what you get. Because really, like in Forgotten Realms, they don't have proper paganism. They have this weird system where most people completely ignore gods or use them only when necessary, and then are pseudo monotheistic, right? Like they're like, oh yeah, I worship Tyr, and the other one goes, no, I worship Torm, right? Well, that's not paganism. That's not how, like Romans didn't go, yeah, I only worship Mars, right? Like that's not how. Then it's not the proper paganism, right? The whole point is that there's this pantheon, and they don't have nice ordered things. There's not like, okay, yeah, there is. Okay, Apollo is the sun god, right? And Venus is the love goddess, right? Yes, that's true. But then Apollo is also like the god of music and of culture, and of a ton of other stuff. For a while, he was the god of sheep herding. He's not anymore. He's the god of oracles. Then Hermes is the god of sheep herding and the god of magic and the god of messengers, and even Venus is the goddess of love. She's a goddess of venereal diseases. She's the goddess of a whole bunch of other stuff too. Poseidon is god of the sea, but he's also the god of horses. It's not neat and tidy, right? So make sure you do that, and make sure that your setting has a culture where it makes sense to be pagan in that culture, not a culture where there's a strong, powerful church. Pagan cultures did not have strong, powerful churches. They had churches that had their influences, temples that were more influential than other temples, certain sects or cults that could have specific cultural power, right? Like the Vestal Virgins in Rome had a certain specific cultural power. But they wouldn't have had an all-encompassing, powerful church that could impose religious law, right? That isn't a feature of pagan cultures. So you've got to do that sort of stuff if you want it to be credible. Iron Cross says, I bought Exeter. It was okay, but I wish you would have filled out the Duke more. The problem is the Duke of Exeter doesn't really live in Exeter, right? So it was a source book about the city, not about the dude. Dark Knight of Hibernia says, with regards to Sol Invictus and Catholicism, Jesus is just a sun god, or as Jordan Peterson would say, not just a sun god. Yeah, well, that's true. Jesus is both a sun god and not just a sun god. Exactly. There's a reason why in the Kabbalah, the sun, alchemical gold, and Jesus all belong in the same spot, which is smack dab in the middle of the tree. So yeah. Peter Garcia says, Pundit, if you make a French setting, will the Brits be some kind of monsters? We'll never know, because I would be dead in the cold, cold ground before I make a French setting. Charlotte Williams says, just got here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Charlotte. Glad to see you. Pedro Garcia says, Genghis Khan did nothing wrong. Well, I don't really agree with that. He was, from this relativist point of view, I guess you could say he did nothing wrong. But to me, destroying the Ming dynasty was something wrong. That was sad, really, because, or not the Ming, sorry, the Song dynasty. Wow, that was a brain fart. The Song dynasty was to me the peak of Chinese civilization. Of course, they were already in terrible decline by the time that Genghis just said, well, let's just round it all off by taking everybody's heads off and claiming it all for myself. But like I said, Genghis totally fucked up both Chinese, Asian civilization and Middle Eastern, Arab, Turkish, Muslim civilization forever, basically, from that point. And the Russians, right? The Russians were fucked up by Genghis Khan. All three of those were devastated by the Mongol horde, which was just a phenomenon unlike anything ever seen before, right? In a way that nobody expected, right? It was an apocalypse. It was as significant in its devastation as the Black Death, and ultimately more harmful, because the Black Death in Europe is something that it was terrible at the time. But without it, it wouldn't have led to I think Europe might not have experienced the Renaissance. And so Europe became better in the long run because of the Black Death. Whereas every single culture that was conquered by the Mongols became worse after the Mongols were gone, right? They all turned backwards inwardly or went nuts. So they became their next iterations became these reactionary, like traumatized survivor cultures that were trying to recreate a fictional past, right? Like the Ming were all about trying to recreate the Song dynasty. And the problem is the Song dynasty was a dynamic, progressive dynasty that was like forward thinking and innovative. And the Ming weren't anything like that because they were trying to imitate the Song, right? They were saying, no, we have to be exactly like them and change nothing ever. But the Song were all about changing, right? Like they were really, really creative. And that was lost. That was from that point on, Imperial China was never creative again, right? Like they were never really forward thinking again. And the same thing happened in the Muslim world from that point on, right? And what had been the very beginnings of what would have been Russian civilization was completely plastered, and what emerged afterwards was this weird traumatized thing too, which is basically explained all the rest of Russian history. Aaron the Pedantic says, Barrier Peaks would be nuts for Lion and Dragon. Hey, Aaron, glad to see you. And yeah, it would. It would be crazy running it, but it could be really cool, right? Like, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Judd Goswick says, what's this about flying ships and Lion and Dragon? Well, it's not that. It's that in my upcoming World of the Last Sun book, there will be a section, it's drawn from the material in RPGPundit Presents, but there'll be a whole section on the floating islands in the World of the Last Sun and the sky ships that fly through the air in the World of the Last Sun, with all the mechanics about them and everything. And some people were talking about whether that could be usable to like to make weird fantasy out of Lion and Dragon? And the answer is sure. That would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? Where were we here? Tyler Sandelli says goodbye. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. You're probably gone already because I'm way behind on the comments, so I'm not going to linger with that. Where are we here? Aaron the Penang says, I like the directness. Lack of stutter ramble usually means very rehearsed, though you're right that excitedness can make it less prevalent. I like seeing the raw thought process. Well, I am all raw thought process, Aaron. That is entirely me. I've never, ever done this with a script to my recollection. It may be that I did at some point, but I just don't remember. But normally, the way I do this is I think of a topic, I kind of think of what I'm going to say about that topic, but I don't write anything down, right? And then I turn on the camera, and sometimes what I say sounds like what I thought, but sometimes it doesn't. I am always ad-libbing on this channel, just like I mostly am on Inappropriate Characters, too. Cristiano Gris says, ¿cómo es posible que tengas solo 3,000 suscriptores? Eso es inaceptable. Con lo que vendes en TTRPG, dile a EOC que te boicotee para que te vendas como Gocha. So he's saying, how is it possible you've only got 3,000 subscribers? That's unacceptable. You need to tell AOC to boycott you so you'll sell as much as Goya Beans does. You know, I don't know if you guys heard about that. Goya Beans just declared Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez their employee of the month because after she called for a boycott of that company because the owner of the company supports Trump, their sales like tripled or some ridiculous thing. So they made her employee of the month, which is just so that somebody's got to do a Thug Life meme about that guy. You know, he's a genius. I love it. Muchas gracias, Cristiano Gris. Es una buena idea. Si conoces a IOC, mandale el aviso. Pedro Garcia says the Yuan dynasty was based. No, the Yuan dynasty was a weird kind of like shambles of a cargo cult. You know, it's like it was pretty wild. It had some good details. Don't get me wrong, but the good details it has were either coincidences or stuff that was lifted from the song or just things that were products of necessity. And it didn't last very long. Dark Knight of Hibernia says, Pundit, this is I'm a little scared to ask this. This makes me nervous because you recommend stuff about the occult and magic. I'm an atheist, but want to understand a little bit. If you were really an atheist, would you be nervous about the occult and magic? Dark Knight of Hibernia? I'm just asking, you know. If you want a book that talks a lot about like magic stuff, do magic, but would want to know about like how it's supposed to work and how different magical systems and symbols work, the book I would actually recommend is called The Magician's Companion by Bill Whitcomb, and I think it's published by Llewellyn Books, The Magician's Companion. And what it is, it's like it's kind of an encyclopedia, and where it shows all these different symbolic systems used in occultism, mainly Western, but also some stuff outside of Western occultism, where it explains what each symbol is meant to be about, and then it talks a bit about the systems of magic that are connected to those symbols. And then it has some appendices that talk a bit about magic rituals and things like that. So it's very good for somebody who wants to like have a reference book on occultism. If you're not really interested in like learning how to do it, but you want to really understand what how it's supposed to be. Hickson-Thrope, the Black Death did nothing wrong, quote, Pundit 2020. Well, Yeah, the Black Death did nothing wrong. I mean, it's not its fault. It was a disease, right? The Mongols were people. They knew what they were doing. Not trying to start anything, but have you seen Legion of Myth's response to your latest storytelling in D&D video? No, I haven't. I'm not totally sure who Legions of Myth is. I'm assuming that's a YouTube channel. I guess I should take a look. The name sounds familiar to me. I might have seen them before, but I don't think I've seen them in the context of of that video. Okay, I'm just looking them up now. Is it Legion of Myth? Yeah, I guess so. And they did a video called "Stop Crying About Storytelling in RPGs." So is that about little old me? Well, given that they've only managed to get 80 views in a day, I guess I can understand how I missed them. But yeah, maybe I'll bother to take a look and see what they have to say. I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what I think about their comments because I haven't seen it. They just have too little. They had too little views for me to notice, I guess. Notice they have 2,000 subscribers, 80 views after a full day on a video. I always end up getting close to 1,000 views on a day on a video. So that's thanks to you guys, and I so appreciate that. It's amazing that you guys are like you're very dedicated to continuing to watch, and I love that. I mean, obviously that means I'm doing something right too, but I so appreciate that you guys take your time to listen to what I have to say, because I know that you don't have to, right? And it must mean that you enjoy what I'm talking about and what I'm saying. I'm just very grateful. Christian Grace says, "How is your Cold War espionage game going?" I haven't really been doing it. Are you thinking of someone else? Because I've never really started on that. It might be something I talked about at some point. I don't know, but it's not really something I'm working on. Though the Invisible College is going to have lots of stuff related to intelligence services. Specifically, there are occult branches and stuff like that. But you could totally play a game in the Invisible College universe where your characters are very interconnected with espionage agencies. Though it's a modern setting game, not set during the Cold War. But you could set it during the Cold War. It wouldn't be hard to change. So I'm being told Legion of Myth is pretty anti-SJW. Well, that's nice. I guess they could be anti-SJW and still disagree with me about certain things. That's okay. They're allowed, you know. Malaquin says, "Just grabbed Star Adventure and now it looks pretty good." Thank you so much, Malaquin. Star Adventure, for those of you who don't know, is my complete, though short, space opera OSR RPG based in the same kind of mechanics as Lion and Dragon, but made for space opera style gaming. And it's part of RPGPundit Presents. It's technically RPGPundit Presents 100. We wanted to make a special edition of that. It's the only book in the RPGPundit Presents series that's available in print. So you can get it in print and PDF combo for just $9.99. And thank you so much for getting it, Malaquin. And anybody else who wants to go and pick it up, check it out. You know, I didn't put the link yet in the description of this video. I'll do that later. But you can look at any of my other videos and you will see a link to the RPGPundit Presents series. You'll find that'll take you to DriveThru, to the Spectre Press site on DriveThru, and you will be able to find it there. Solomon Kane says, "Pundit is an a-hole. We happen to like a-holes." So thank you very much. I will not deny the first point there. Charles Marlowe says, "Magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity to the will." Aleister Crowley, yes, that's correct. Christian Grace says, yes, you were looking for a publisher some time ago for a game. Yeah, that was for the Invisible College, which is not really a Cold War espionage game. It never was. It is a game about playing members of secret societies, magical secret societies, in a secret war for the fate of humanity behind the scenes of the ordinary world, right? And the part that might have confused you a bit is that it was always a part of that game that there are the world governments, their secret agencies, like the CIA and MI, British military intelligence. They know that this is happening, right? But or at least parts of those governments know, and sometimes get involved. Cristiano Gris says, we follow you because we do not want socialismo bolivariano in America. Misery for everyone but the high-level party members. Absolutely right, dude. This is why there were so many base Latinos that supported Trump, because, Latinos know exactly what it looks like when people like Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez end up in power, right? And you do not want that in your country. Let's see what else. Character design reference says, hey Pundit, congrats on your 3,000 subs. Oh my God, am I at yeah, I'm at the end here. Wow. A bit of a random request. Could you quickly share your thoughts on the old D&D 2nd edition setting Birthright? I'm going to be honest with you. I did not really like Birthrights at the time it came out. It was just not something I was into. I mean, I liked the idea of Dominion running stuff, right? But at the time I was a bit burned out on 2nd edition, and I already had sort of that with the rule cyclopedia stuff on running Dominions. And the setting itself just always turned me off for something. I just thought it seemed like too prefab for that specific gimmicky mechanic, right? So I didn't like that. It didn't work for me. I think some other thing like Adventure Conquer King kind of it works for me. I mean, I've never run it, but I like it, right? Whereas Birthright, it just seemed too gimmicky for me. Dracopole says, Alex Jones warned that SJWs will make Pundit turn the Froglands gay. Well, the funny thing about Alex Jones, he bugs the hell out of me. He really does. But it's really funny how many things he said that everybody said, oh, no, this is crazy. That'll never happen. And that it happens, Like the guy, if he wasn't so outrageous, one would have to really take him seriously, right? Because he has proven to be a bit of a Cassandra in all kinds of things, Dark Knight of Hibernia says, Pundit, could you put your more recent products on Amazon like the Old School Companion? I would love to do that. The thing is, all of my products, I'm not a publisher. I've never been a publisher of any of my own books. I always work with publishers. I'm lucky enough that because I'm kind of, famous in the OSR world anyways, I have enough appeal that publishers are willing to enter in very good deals with me to get to publish my stuff. So I don't have to learn how to make a PDF myself, which thank God, because if I had to, you'd never see any of my books in print. Or they'd look incredibly shitty, right? So thankfully, I've got publishers that publish stuff for me. Unfortunately, that means that they're the ones that decide all of that stuff, right? Like how nice my games look, that isn't, the details of it at least are not my doing. They're like Lion and Dragon and, Dark Albion, Cults of Chaos. These are all beautiful, beautiful books inside and out. That's not because of me. That's thanks to Dominic Crusade, right? Who is an incredible designer. He did such a great job, but that's not me, right? But on the other hand, he also decides, where it sells. And in his case, he's got it, it's on Amazon. You can buy Lion and Dragon on Amazon or Dark Albion. But those sorts of decisions fall into the hands of the publisher. And sometimes I have a little bit of influence, but I am not one of these prima donna guys that is going to try to fight with my publisher about stuff, right? So in the case of Spectre Press, they are right now only set up to do stuff on Drive-Thru RPG, and that's what they want to do. So for the moment, at least, that's what's going to happen. I will, mention again that there are people interested in seeing it on Amazon, but I doubt, I'm not gonna push them on it because it's their decision, right? I think The Invisible College will be available on Amazon because it's not Spectre Press. It's being done by Occult Detective, by their subdivision of games. So it's a different publisher, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have that book available on Amazon in print and PDF probably. So if you don't like Drive-Thru, you'll be able to get that one there. Og Smash goes, and Alex Jones is starting to look sane, the world is going, what the fuck, right? Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, 2020 is kind of the year of Alex Jones was right, like up to and including having people talking, like there's no conspiracy. The part that's wrong is that calling it a conspiracy theory, right? The Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. You can't call something a conspiracy theory. Like you can't say, oh, there's a secret conspiracy theory to rob a bank if a guy publishes a book on Amazon saying, I am going to rob the bank, and sells it to everyone and holds public events about how he's going to rob the bank, and press conferences about his plan being to rob a bank, right? That's not a conspiracy. That's a public announcement of what you're going to do, right? And the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, is not a conspiracy theory. There's no secret to it. They're openly saying what they're going to do. Klaus Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset, which you can buy on Amazon, which lays out the entire plan of what he's going to do. Like it's not a secret project. It's a public, open project because they don't feel like they even have to hide anything anymore, right? Anyway, now we're getting into politics. Dark Knight said, I would like books. Well, I told you what books on the occult. I told you the one book on the occult that you might want to see that could be a good guidebook for you. It's called The Magician's Companion by Bill Whitcomb. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it didn't come out when I first said it. It's published by Llewellyn Books. It's called The Magician's Companion. So if you want a book that's like an encyclopedia of magic and magical symbols, then that's a good book. It's ordered in a way that it explains a little bit the basics about each system of magic out of the really major ones. So that sounds like what you want, something so you can kind of understand this stuff, right? Judd Gossick said, The Great Reset had a convention with videos and everything. It had everything except a cosplay contest. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if it didn't have a cosplay contest. Did you see the outfit that Schwab was wearing there? Like the guy that wrote the book on this, he looked like it was like some kind of Emperor Palpatine outfit or something. I don't know, like it was this weird science fiction-y looking outfit, or like he was like meant to be some kind of crazy James Bond villain, like it's just so like, why would you make that wardrobe choice if you want to convince people that you are not the baddie? Like they're just so open about it at this point. It's so funny. Anyway, and yet you keep getting people saying, oh, like in the media, they keep saying, these conspiracy theorists that talk about the Great Reset. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, when Justin Trudeau says it publicly, he talked about the Great Reset publicly. How can you claim it's a conspiracy theory? It's an open statement, right? Anyway. Dracopol says, remember, Mad Max was set in 2021. Yeah, well, that's Australia for you. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Australia looked by 2021. Pundit, did you know EU headquarters has a painting of the Tower of Babel as something to aspire to? Yes, I did know that, yeah. It's pretty funny. And like these guys, the arrogance of these people, these technocrats, their absolute certainty that they know how to run the world when they barely know how to run their own lives, And this stupid notion that they have, this mechanistic notion of creation and reality and human behavior, that they think that if they could just, that the natural world society and individual people are all like machines, and if you just get to control the whole program, you'll be able to make everything work in harmony and everything will just be paradisical. Like, that's their point of view, and that only really smart people would be skilled enough to do that. The problem that they see it, their version of no true socialism, is that, you know, you need the really proper people that have been properly educated to be the technocratic overlords to make sure that it all works right. You know, it's that people wouldn't listen to the experts, right? And if only the experts had absolute power, then we would be able to make it happen and it would work perfectly. And of course, if it doesn't, they'll say, well, those were the wrong experts, right? It's just another version of the Marxist argument. But the sheer arrogance of it is just amazing, that these people think that they're so much smarter than normal people that they should get to run everyone's lives, you know. It really disgusts me. What else are we at here? Dark Knight says, will the Invisible College be out sooner, or is it a ways off? Well, the Invisible College is currently scheduled to come out before the end of the first half of 2021. There's a chance it might come out in the first quarter, that is in the first 3 months of 2021, but I wouldn't promise that. There's a chance, though. It's still possible. It's looking good. It's looking good. And I'm still hoping that World of the Last Sun will be out before the end of the year. So like within this month. So that's the first thing that's coming out that's going to be new from me, is the World of the Last Sun. And then the next thing will be Invisible College. And there's still episodes or issues of RPG Pundit Presents to come out, of course. We've really slowed down production on that, but I'm still going to make a few more. And there's still a few more in the pipeline, you know, is what I mean. And yeah, and then after that, we'll see. I'm like I said, I'm working on this Silk Road setting. Anyways, anybody else got any other questions, or should we start to wrap up? It's been it's been more than an hour and a half at this point. I want to thank everyone for showing up and joining in. We've had some great conversation, I think. It's been really interesting. We've had a few technical glitches, but not as many as we could have had, so that's something too. I appreciate everybody watching. James Vitale says, I wish I caught more of it. Well, you know, after we're done, the video will come out, so we'll get a chance. You'll get a chance to see it then. Pedro Garcia says, why do you hate France? Oh, I don't hate France. You know, it's just there's Frenchmen in it, you know. Actually, I'm very good friends with a lot of Frenchmen. And keep in mind, the guy that made Dark Albion, like the publisher of Dark Albion, which features Frogland, is a Frenchman, 100% French, lives in France. It is a French product, okay? That's Dominique Cruzet, right? He is French, right? And he is the publisher, and he was like laughing his ass off about it. So I think that there are quite a lot of Frenchmen that have a very good sense of humor about this, because of course what it is, it's the English stereotype of the Frenchman that they're laughing at, right? And they can get that because they know it's not true, right? So yeah, there's that. Ogsmash goes, any thoughts to ever write an adventure for DCC? Ogsmash, my man, have you bought any of the Gonzo Fantasy RPG Pundit Presents products? Because every single adventure in the Last Sun series is basically a DCC adventure. Every single one of them. So if you haven't seen that, you need to get on it. You need to take a look at those, because that's the stuff, man. I have written stuff that are like, you know, they're not official products of DC, but my Last Sun campaign was a DCC campaign, right? And so it's made to be usable with any OSR product, but the default that it's written for is DCC as a game, right? So I'm not saying it's an official DCC product in any way. So you should check those out. Some examples, you know, as soon as I find one here. Let's see here. So the earliest of them all would be, because I started doing those a little later in the RPG Pundit Presents series. Well, the Door of 16 Gates, which is RPG Pundit Presents 25, it's not exactly an adventure. It's like a weird object that lets you go to a number of different planes, but that's definitely something you could use in a DCC context. Then there's what comes after that? The Saga of the Green and Blue Mutant Chiefs. That's RPG Pundit Presents 36, which is, it takes place in this massive forest where there's a pair of tribes, the Green Mutants and the Blue Mutants, that are stuck in a long-term feud with each other, and the PCs are in there. It's a sandbox adventure. It's pretty fun. The Great Tree Druid, set in the same forest. That's RPG Pundit Presents 39, where there is now another faction that are worshippers of a kind of evil tree druid. I don't want to give away more than that, but that's a good one too. Probably one of my most popular ones is RPG Pundit Presents number 42, At the Darkness, which is an adventure about a quest for the incredibly hard to find spell known as Advanced Magic Missile, which allows you to cast Magic Missile at the darkness. And it involves trekking into the lands ruled by an evil demon lord and having to go through a number of different dangers in the attempt to obtain the one of the last remaining scrolls of Advanced Magic Missile, so that some wizard can gain it to add it to his repertoire in order to use it to stop a barrier of darkness that allows the demon lord to continue to rule. So it's pretty damn gonzo. Let's put it that way. Well, there's quite a few others that I did in that style. So just check those out. You're gonna like them. They're definitely gonzo fantasy, weird fantasy, and check out all the other Last Sun stuff for the World of the Last Sun that's coming out. Will compile all the setting part of it of like the setting of the World of the Last Sun. But then there's gonna be a lot of other stuff that won't be in that book yet. That might be a future compilation. None of these adventures that I'm naming are going to be in the World of the Last Sun book, so don't worry about like picking them up. Against the Marauders is another one where they have to like protect the helpless and stupid inhabitants of an elven dome from a group of marauders. That leads to a lot of interesting, humorous adventure. So yeah, stuff like that. So I think those are enough examples for the moment. Be sure to check those out if what you're looking for is DCC style adventures. Weird fantasy, gonzo fantasy adventure. Let me see what else. Anything else to talk about? Glenn Gilbert says, can you comment on how clerics would operate in the War of the Roses? Would they be neutral like the Red Cross? Would be Yorkist, Lancastrian cleric roles? Well, Glenn, I don't know if you own the Dark Albion book, but it basically explains that, right? Clerics, as in the clerical order, have their own hierarchy. That hierarchy by default is neutral during the war. However, clerics that are assigned to serve specific nobles or specific institutions are obliged to loyally serve those nobles or those institutions, right? So if your cleric is a cleric of the clerical order, you are in fact a neutral party in the War of the Roses. But if your cleric is assigned to, say, the household of the Earl of Warwick, then he is obviously of the Yorkist faction, right? So the player character clerics, what they have to follow in terms of loyalties will be based on what they're assigned to do by the order, which you as the DM can basically decide, right? YOLO says, Pundit, how much you want to bet your internet issues is some Google intern screwing up your connection due to wrong speak? I'm not sure about that. I think part of it might be that I'm trying to do this on a phone. Part of it might be third world issues. of local internet. Part of it might be I have a really shitty router. But, you know, it's possible. But I think if they were doing that, they'd probably just be... There would be more sabotage than there is right now. Anyways, guys, I think that we're getting to the end of the rope here. Yeah, it was a joke, kinda, says YOLO. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'm kind of amazed that I haven't been more persecuted yet. But, you know, I'm talking about games. I'm not engaging in anything that would have any legitimate cause for persecution. But, of course, we know that that isn't usually enough to avoid persecution in this day and age. But, well, we'll see. I do need to get myself a Rumble account, I think. I've already got a BitChute account, but you know, I'll have backups if anything happens, guys. Remember, sign up to my if you're on BitChute anyways, sign up to my BitChute account. I don't put any special videos there that aren't on here. I've got it entirely as a protective measure, but sign up there if you're on BitChute, so that if I vanish someday, check it out. Check out my Twitter, check out my Mewe, wherever you are, my Parler. I will announce where I will be continuing to do videos to hopefully carry on. JP Moore says, if I move to Uruguay as an escape from New York, will you let me fix your internet? Yeah, sure. I'd be grateful for any help, you know. Dark Knight of Irene says, what is the pundit smoking? Well, it's getting close to the hour to call it the night, so I'll show you guys. I am smoking. This is a Ben Wade Rhodesian, and inside I'm getting very near to the end of it, but I'm smoking Argento Latakia. And I guess having now announced my pipe smoking choice and losing my voice from talking nonstop for a bit over 2 hours now, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you guys so much. Please share this video. If you happen to be watching, if this is the first video you're ever watching of me, well, great. But then be sure to subscribe, check out my other videos, hit the like button. And I will eventually be posting links here. By the time anybody watches this who isn't already watching it right now during the live show, there'll be links there to my different products. Please check those out. It's a great way to support me, but you'll also get something out of it. When you buy my books or when you buy my Pundit Presents PDFs, you'll get stuff you can use in your OSR or, you know, old school campaign, or you can use it for 5e. You can use it for, you know, you can use it in whatever game you're running, if it's fantasy or, you know, medieval authentic historical stuff or any of those, right? So I hope that you end up giving that a shot, right? But if you can't right now, or you just don't want to, but you do want to help me out, then, you know, subscribe and share the video. And I guess we'll be doing this again when I hit 4,000, which I'm guessing will take less time than what it took to get to 3,000, because there seems to be acceleration happening. I hope so. And we'll talk to you guys all soon. Thank you very, very much.